At 4:19 in the morning, an organic milk tanker pulls away from the Aurora Organic Dairy loading dock near Platteville, Colorado. The tank holds 6,800 gallons. The milk inside left cows less than 90 minutes ago. It dropped from body temperature to 38 degrees Fahrenheit in the bulk tanks before transfer, and the tanker's insulated stainless interior will hold that temperature across the 280-mile route to the processing facility in Utah. The tanker carries documentation in the cab: organic system plan references, farm certification numbers, tanker wash records, because the milk in this tank is not simply milk. It is certified organic milk, and the chain of custody that proves that certification extends from the pastures where these cows grazed yesterday afternoon, all the way to the private label organic carton that will appear on the shelf at a Costco or Walmart within the next 4 days. A second dedicated organic tanker departs 40 minutes later. A third follows before 6 a.m. Aurora Organic Dairy operates approximately 15,000 certified organic dairy cows at its Platteville, Colorado facility. Daily production exceeds 150,000 gallons. The operation supplies organic milk to some of the largest retail chains in the country: Costco, Walmart, Target, under private label organic brands. At this scale, Aurora is not a niche producer selling premium product at farmers' markets. It is an industrial dairy operation that has built the systems, supply chains, and compliance infrastructure required to maintain USDA organic certification across 15,000 cows, 7 days a week, at commercial throughput that supplies national retail accounts. The question of whether that is possible, whether organic dairy production can operate at this scale without compromising the standards that organic certification is supposed to guarantee, has followed Aurora throughout its history. Understanding how the operation actually functions requires following it from the pastures where the organic certification is earnest each day to the cartons where it appears on retail shelves across the country. USDA organic certification for dairy cattle rests on 3 foundational requirements that distinguish it from conventional dairy production. The first is feed. Organic dairy cows must consume feed that has been produced without synthetic pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, or genetically modified organisms. Every ingredient in the ration, the corn silage, the hay, the grain, the trace mineral supplements, must come from certified organic sources with documentation tracing it through the supply chain from the field where it was grown. The second is health management. Organic dairy cows cannot receive synthetic hormones or antibiotics. A cow that requires antibiotic treatment for illness must be removed from the certified organic herd permanently. She cannot return to organic production after treatment, regardless of withdrawal period. This requirement fundamentally alters the economic calculus of disease management in organic dairy. The cost of losing a cow to permanent removal from the organic herd creates a strong incentive for intensive preventive health management. The third, and most operationally demanding at Aurora's scale, is pasture. USDA organic regulations require that certified organic dairy cattle have access to pasture throughout the grazing season in their region, and that pasture must provide a minimum of 30% of the herd's dry matter intake across the grazing season, averaged across the full season. The regulation defines the grazing season for each region based on local climate conditions. In Colorado's Northern Front Range, the grazing season runs approximately 150 to 180 days annually, depending on the year. The 30% from pasture requirement is not trivially easy to meet, at 15,000 cows. A cow consuming 50 pounds of dry matter daily must obtain 15 pounds of that dry matter from grazing fresh pasture, not hay, not silage, but actively grazed pasture plant material, averaged across the grazing season. At 15,000 cows, the total daily pasture intake during the grazing season runs to 225,000 pounds of dry matter per day. That demand requires pasture acreage that produces organic forage at sufficient quantity and quality to meet it. Aurora manages approximately 20,000 acres of land in the Platteville area for pasture and feed production. The pasture rotation, moving the herd through different sections of the pasture system on a schedule that allows previously grazed sections to recover before cattle return, is the management tool that prevents overgrazing from degrading the resource. A section grazed to residual height must rest 21 to 28 days in actively growing conditions before the next grazing rotation, or the plants cannot recover adequately. At 15,000 cows requiring meaningful daily pasture access across the 150-plus day grazing season, the logistics of rotating that many animals through a managed pasture system is an operational challenge that occupies Aurora's pasture management staff continuously. The organic feed supply chain that supports Aurora's herd through the winter months and supplements pasture during the grazing season is where the industrial scale of the operation collides most directly with the supply constraints of the certified organic ingredient market. Organic corn and organic soybean meal, the primary energy and protein sources in a dairy ration, trade at substantial premiums over conventional equivalents. In recent years, the organic corn has traded at 2 to 3 times the price of conventional corn. Organic soybean meal commands similar premiums. For a 15,000 cow operation consuming millions of pounds of grain and protein supplement annually, these premiums represent a feed cost structure fundamentally different from conventional dairy farming. Aurora sources organic feed ingredients from a regional supplier network that extends across the Mountain West and into the Midwest, where organic crop production has expanded in response to the premium prices that organic livestock operations pay. The documentation requirements that verify organic status flow with the grain. Field certification records from the certifying agency, harvest records, transportation logs, storage documentation, creating a paper trail from field to bulk bin that an inspector can audit. Cross-contamination is the documentation risk that organic supply chain management must prevent. Organic grain stored in bins previously used for conventional grain can carry conventional pesticide residue from contamination on bin surfaces or from grain dust. A tanker that transported conventional grain without adequate cleaning cannot transport organic grain to an organic operation without compromising the certification. Aurora's receiving protocols require documentation of cleaning procedures for every delivery vehicle and storage vessel in the supply chain, and maintain dedicated organic-only storage infrastructure on site. The practical challenge of sourcing 150,000 plus pounds of organic dry matter daily from a supply base whose total production is limited by the number of acres currently certified organic in the western United States, creates market pressure that Aurora's procurement team navigates continuously. When organic crop failures in the Mountain West region reduce regional supply, feed the operation sources from further distances, adding transportation cost, or faces supply shortfalls that require approved alternative ingredients that may not match the nutritional profile of the displaced commodity. The health management protocols that govern Aurora's 15,000 cow herd under organic certification operate within a no antibiotics constraint that changes the risk calculation for every disease decision the veterinary team makes. In conventional dairy, a cow with a treatable mastitis case receives antibiotic therapy, serves the required withdrawal period, and returns to the milking string. The cost is the treatment, the discarded milk during withdrawal, and the reduced production during recovery. A good clinical outcome, full recovery of udder function, preserves the cow as a productive asset. In certified organic dairy, the same cow presents a different calculation. If the mastitis case requires antibiotic treatment, the cow leaves the certified organic herd permanently. The cost is the full replacement value of a high-producing certified organic dairy cow, an amount that can run several $1,000s above the value of a conventional replacement heifer, because certified organic replacements must themselves have been raised organically from before the last third of gestation. This cost asymmetry creates a management philosophy oriented more heavily toward prevention than in conventional dairy, an early detection of subclinical mastitis, before the infection progresses to a clinical stage where antibiotic treatment would be standard practice, becomes a primary management focus. Teat dipping and post-milking teat disinfection with approved organic substances, milking equipment, hygiene, cow hygiene, and bedding management that reduces udder exposure to environmental pathogens, and regular monitoring of individual cow somatic cell counts for early-stage elevation. All of these preventive measures receive more intensive management attention in an organic system, where the treatment option the conventional dairy uses routinely is not available. When a cow does reach a stage where conventional veterinary judgment would recommend antibiotic treatment, the organic operation faces a choice. Use approved non-antibiotic therapeutic options and accept a potentially lower recovery rate, or treat with antibiotics and permanently remove the cow from the organic herd. The regulatory framework requires that animal welfare takes precedence. A cow that requires antibiotic treatment to prevent suffering must receive it, and the financial consequence of that decision falls on the operation rather than on the animal. Aurora's scale means this decision occurs multiple times per day across 15,000 cows. A herd health team large enough to make timely, well-informed decisions on each case is a significant operational requirement, and the emphasis on preventive management that the no antibiotic constraint creates drives investment in herd health monitoring systems that can detect problems early. The pasture rotation system at Aurora runs across 20,000 acres of northern Colorado land that sits in the semi-arid Front Range region, where annual precipitation averages 13 to 15 inches and summer temperatures regularly exceed 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not the lush dairy country of Vermont or the Pacific Northwest. The native and seeded forage plants that grow on Colorado's plains produce adequate organic dry matter during the growing season, but require careful management to prevent degradation from overgrazing or drought stress. The pasture management team at Aurora tracks forage mass across the rotation using a combination of visual assessment, height measurement, and periodic calibration weighing of forage cuts to verify that paddock inventories match the estimates that guide rotation timing. The 120-plus days annually that regulatory compliance requires cattle to have meaningful pasture access sets a minimum grazing season timeline. But the 30% of dry matter intake requirement from pasture sets the quantity standard that makes that access agronomically meaningful rather than token, of meeting both the access requirement and the intake requirement across 15,000 cows requires that the pasture system consistently produces adequate forage and that the rotation schedule maintains stocking densities that allow sufficient daily intake per animal. A cow grazing for 6 to 8 hours on a paddock needs that paddock to carry enough forage mass to provide her 15 or more pounds of dry matter. If the paddock carries 1,500 pounds of available dry matter per acre, a cow needs roughly 0.01 acres per hour of grazing, and 15,000 cows need about 150 acres of active grazing paddock per day. The rotation system calculates this demand against the available paddock acreage and the rest period requirements for recovery, generating a daily paddock assignment that the herd staff executes. Water access across 20,000 acres presents infrastructure requirements that small-scale pasture dairy doesn't face. Portable water systems, the pipeline infrastructure serving multiple paddock areas, and the labor to move water access points as rotation progresses at operational complexity that is manageable at Aurora's scale, only with significant investment in pasture infrastructure. Aurora's primary market position, supplying national retail chains with private label organic milk, creates a commercial relationship that differs from the cooperative or branded direct-to-consumer models that smaller organic dairy operations use. The Costco's Kirkland Signature Organic Milk, Walmart's Great Value Organic, Target's Good and Gather Organic. These private label products carry the retailer's brand rather than the producer's name, and the retail buyer negotiates supply and pricing terms directly with Aurora rather than through a cooperative price pool. The retailer specifies the product, fluid organic milk in specific fat percentages and container sizes, and Aurora supplies it under a contract that specifies volume, quality standards, and delivery schedules. The private label model gives Aurora direct access to retail shelf space at national scale without building the consumer brand equity that processor-branded products require. It also gives the retail buyers significant negotiating power over pricing, because switching to an alternative organic supplier, if one exists at comparable scale and reliability, is possible without consumer confusion. The brand is the retailer's, not Aurora's, or the organic premium that Costco or Walmart charges consumers for organic milk over conventional milk provides the revenue that makes the higher production cost of organic certification economically viable. The retailer captures a portion of that premium as margin. Aurora captures a portion as the price premium it receives over conventional milk prices. The negotiated split between those two determines Aurora's margin per gallon. This market structure means Aurora's economic viability depends on the organic milk price premium remaining above the production cost premium of organic farming. The additional cost of organic feed, the additional labor for pasture management and compliance documentation, the health management cost implications of the no antibiotic constraint, and the infrastructure investment in dedicated organic transportation and storage. If the organic premium compresses, as consumer interest fluctuates or as competing organic dairy supply increases, Aurora's margins compress with it. The USDA National Organic Program's certification system that governs Aurora's operation requires third-party inspection of the facility at least annually, with the certifying agent conducting a full audit of records, practices, and physical conditions. Aurora works with an accredited certifying agency that reviews the operation's organic system plan, a comprehensive document describing every practice relevant to organic compliance, from pasture management to health protocols to feed sourcing to record keeping, and then conducts on-site inspections that verify the plan's implementation. The record-keeping infrastructure that supports this audit process is substantial. Feed purchase records must match feed consumption records. The health treatment records must document what each treated animal received, the outcome, and whether the cow was removed from the certified herd. Pasture records must document rotation schedules, paddock forage estimates, and grazing time calculations that support the 30% dry matter intake claim. Tanker cleaning records must show that organic-only transport protocols were followed. The milk testing records must confirm that no antibiotic residues have appeared in organic milk leaving the facility. At 15,000 cows, the volume of records the compliance system generates is significant. Individual animal records, group pasture records, daily feed delivery logs, testing documentation. All of it must be maintained, organized, and accessible for audit. The digital record-keeping systems that Aurora uses to manage this documentation are as much a part of the organic operations infrastructure as the tankers and the pasture fences. Aurora's history includes a significant certification challenge in 2007, when the USDA's Agricultural Marketing Service conducted an investigation following complaints from organic advocacy organizations that questioned whether the operation was providing adequate pasture access as required under organic regulations. The investigation led to findings that Aurora had not met certain organic certification requirements and resulted in a compliance agreement that included enhanced pasture access protocols and monitoring requirements. The experience drove Aurora to invest more substantially in the pasture infrastructure and documentation systems that its current operation runs on. The 20,000 acres, the rotation management systems, the forage monitoring protocols. These emerged in part from the post-2007 commitment to demonstrating compliance in ways that withstand scrutiny. 150,000 gallons of organic milk per day. The volume converts to approximately 1.25 billion pounds of organic milk annually from a single Colorado operation. The national organic milk market in the United States runs to several billion pounds annually. Aurora's Platteville facility supplies a meaningful share of it from one location. The tankers that depart Platteville in the pre-dawn hours carry milk that is, simultaneously, a commodity and a certified specialty product. It is industrial in its volume, its transportation logistics, its processing destination, and its retail distribution channel. It is organic in its feed sourcing, its health management protocols, its pasture access documentation, and the regulatory compliance infrastructure that the certifying agency audits each year. Those two descriptions, industrial and organic, describe the same cows eating the same pasture and producing milk into the same bulk tanks. The tension between them is not resolved by Aurora's operation, it is expressed by it. A 15,000 cow organic dairy demonstrates that the USDA organic standard can be applied at industrial scale. Whether that application captures the spirit behind the standard is a question that the certifying agencies audit, the regulations' specific requirements, and the retail buyers' purchasing decisions answer differently. What the operation demonstrates concretely is that 15,000 cows can maintain organic certification, produce 150,000 gallons of organic milk daily, and supply national retail chains with a product that meets every regulatory requirement that USDA organic status imposes. If the infrastructure, the supply chains, the pasture systems, and the compliance documentation are built to support it. At 4:19 in the morning, the first tanker pulls away from the dock. The documentation in the cab proves where this milk came from. The pastures that produced part of what fed those cows this summer sit dark and quiet under the Colorado sky. In 4 days, this milk will sit on a Costco shelf. The certification travels with it. If this look at the infrastructure and compliance systems behind one of the largest certified organic dairy operations in the country gave you a clearer picture of what organic farming looks like at industrial scale, hit the like button and help more viewers find this kind of detailed content. Subscribe for more deep dives into the systems, supply chains, and certifications behind modern food production. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. These stories travel to places we don't expect, and hearing from those places matters.